Welcome to Support Life, a program focusing on current social issues from a life-affirming perspective. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest today is Kevin Sayers, an ex-electrical and power technician. Welcome, Kevin.
How are you going, Gavin? Nice to meet you.
Good. And you've had a very interesting upbringing, I would call it, which will probably, a number of people might just identify with it.
Yeah.
So where and how did it start?
Oh, I was more taken away from my mother when I believe when I was about 3 months old, and I was put in homes, for a duration of about 12 years, and it kind of, well, I wouldn't say it was too good of a life, but I really had the situation of problems and things like that. Like if I didn't eat my meal or something like that, like I didn't like curry, they used to have sultanas in it, and I'd stick it up on the shelf with a thing of fire, called a mantelpiece on top of in the room, and I just stayed there for 2 or 3 days until I ate it. But I wouldn't touch it at all because I guess I got a bit of determination from that. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, so how many homes did you move around to?
From memory, what I was told, I was at Royal Park. They had for young kids or babies up to, 7 or 8 or 9. Then after that, I went to the Box Hill Boys' Home. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Were you ever fostered out?
Well, at Christmas time, they sometimes they must advertise to take the kids out to relieve the staff and all that. And I was fostered out a couple of times, but sometimes that didn't work out. I remember once that I went out to these people. I saw they had this metal container on top of a chimney. And I said, gee, there's something wrong with that. And so I climbed up the trellis to get it off because it looked normal there. And I thought I was helping them. And boom, I was taken back to the home straight away because I must have broken something important on the trellis and that. And so it didn't always work out too good.
Okay. Did Mum visit you much?
I can only really remember my mother visited me once. And it's funny because I still remember the exact place I was sitting and the sun was shining and she come to see me, and I saw her there, and I noticed she had incredibly red golden type hair. I could see the sun shining. It kind of impressed me a bit, and but I really can't remember much about my mother except that momentary vision which I remembered. And amazing enough, when I had the first grandchild, who was Olivia, and it reminded me of just momentarily seeing my mother. So the gene pool booted up about 3 generations later, and she's got beautiful red hair as well.
Wow, that's a lovely memory to have.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, now going through those adolescent years, did you gain trust in humanity or lose trust in humanity? What took place in your headspace?
Well, to a certain extent, it become rather introverted because I found it very difficult for years. My daughter, she always has to go up me when I'm talking to people. I'm not really looking them in the face. I'm looking around the area. And subconsciously, I couldn't connect with people because you're just pushed around and treated like a third-class citizen. And I found it very hard to really get involved with people and things like that. But I must admit there was 1 ounce of empathy, I suppose. There's this lolly man who used to come and on reflection, I could still see him. He had a very red face. He might have had an alcohol problem. He used to come and give us lollies, and I used to, I suppose the first question I said, why has he been nice to us? Why is he giving us the lollies? And not that I got the answer, but it entrenched into me that some people are generous.
Okay, when you went to other homes occasionally, did you see a kind of a lifestyle that wow, is this what home life's really like? What happened?
Well, I suppose I always had a bit of an inquisitive nature, and I can remember once when I was at Royal Park, I must have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years of age, and I became a bit interested. I found it, I noticed mirrors absolutely fascinating, that made a reflected light and all this type of thing. But I noticed the back of mirrors had kind of a chocolate colour, and I grabbed a bit of glass and I rubbed a bit of chocolate on the back. I thought that must be a perfect mixture, and I was highly disappointed. And also they had a radio in there, we're talking back in the early 50s, And I noticed that if you touched the aerial, it went louder, and it got rid of some of the crackle. Your body more or less acts as an aerial, so I picked that up. I said, maybe I'll put this in a PowerPoint, it'll go better. So I poked the wire in the PowerPoint. It must have been about 4 years of age or something. I turned the PowerPoint and bang! I was very popular after that.
So is this your first experience with science and certain principles of electricity and atoms, and is that where it started? Yeah,
probably so, because yeah. Well, I remember they used to. I noticed when we used to get the baths, you had the same bath everyone hopped into, whether once a week or once a month. I can't remember that. And I quickly noticed that when you're about the 5th or 6th or 7th kid in the water's quite cold. But I quickly worked out where the hot tap was and turn it on. But I knew if the hot water stayed at one end, it was too hot. So I turned the tap on when they weren't looking and swish all the water out. And they kind of caught on I was doing this, and they used to always stand around waiting for me to do it. So they must have realised that I like to look into things and how they worked and all that.
Mm-hmm. All right. When did numbers, figures sort of grab you? Because you've got a very inquisitive mind.
Yeah, well, I guess I've always been interested in physics and all that. I guess what happened to me, I become very detached from people, getting close to people, because you didn't know who you are for month. You had someone different all the time. And I suppose I become a bit introverted, where I just looked in for facts and figures and things like that. I even went for a stage where I said I'm not going to read any other people's books or thoughts, as I'll work out things myself. So I tend to become very focused in figures and facts. And you know, I kind of was interested in the universe and how things worked and things like that. And yeah, so that's more or less how I suppose I got into figures and facts and that, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll come back and look at the universe in a moment. You're watching Support Life, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life. I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Kevin Sayers, an ex-electrical and power technician. Kevin, we just started to get into a bigger view of the universe. And let's wind back a little bit. You were adopted out.
Mm.
Tell me about that.
Oh, when I was about 12 years of age, I guess I'm not too sure the infrastructure of the homes had, but I had some people visit me and they wanted to adopt me out, and I went through a difficult time in that situation, because I saw bouts of, not that I knew much about alcohol, and that's interesting itself, because there's a Salvation Army and they mentioned about that it's evil to drink, and it's one of the reasons it turned me off some things they should tell me about the Christianity and things like that, because of I said, well, you don't drink, you die. You know, I didn't know anything about alcohol, so when you're talking to people, you've got to talk their language. But I started finding out what alcohol was, and it turned out my adopted dad was going to be, he had an alcohol problem, he'd go in rages of fits and things like that, and I was very perplexed. It's really what to do. And I was pulled in a room to ask, and I didn't really know what answer to do. There was something told me there was something wrong, and I was just sitting on a knife edge, and they ask you, without your prospective parents being around, where do you want to be adopted? And I don't know why I said yes, but I look back and see the experiences I learnt, because I know my mum really tried to do things. She got smashed around a bit, and I realised years later I kind of hated my dad who adopted. I realised he wasn't a returned serviceman, and he did have his problems, and he was a gunner and suffered shell shock and things like this. He saw a lot of terrible things, but it wasn't a really a nice thing to go down in some ways. He got in a rage one night. He's going down Wheelers Hill. It was a lot deeper in those days. It was a standard 10 type car, and as we're going to die, I might as well enjoy the ride. I was going down, but mysteriously slowed down last minute and nothing happened. And I kind of become very blasé about life. And once I was on top of a building there, I could have committed suicide. It crossed my mind. I was probably only about 12, 13, 14. But something told me not to do it. So I struggled through the adoption. And when I got old enough to back answer my parents, like he sent me to the church, and I said, well, he never went. So when I got old enough back home, so I didn't bother going, and stood up to him, and I was a free man. So I ended up leaving and mixing with the wrong people to a certain extent. But amazingly enough, I got a reasonably, I look back, some of the people that led me, one person thought I had some academical skills and encouraged my parents to stay at school. And I think they even gave me something to help, and that gave me a slightly higher education standard where I got into the SEC, into an electrical trainee type ship, which I didn't realise years later how important. So I look back over my life and realised certain people guided me, more a mentor. And even when I become a Christian, I still was a bit, I just became a Christian. This person called me in his office and says, you know, you got to, I dragged my feet and was lacking a few qualifications. He pulled me in the office and he said, you know, Kevin, you're married now, you should, you know, try to position yourself and your opportunities, go back to school. And I was about to say, who do you think you are? And I realised, oh, this person's trying to help me. And I did become I'm talking when I became a Christian, and it just gave me a different insight. I said, this person's concerned, and I started to realise how important it is to have mentors in your life. I went back and picked up the subjects in a couple of years, and I'm very thankful to his, to how he helped me.
So there were a few people that you bumped into. I believe you weren't doing well in exams, and a young woman suggested what?
Yeah, well, we men kind of be a bit proud, I suppose, when you get some opposite sex convert, and it kind of has a bit of effect on you, but you tend to be a bit more humble when you... I was looking, and like I remember I used to go out to parties and alcohol and all this type of thing, and so what's it all about, you know, wars, the Vietnam War was on around then, it's just crazy, we're all doomed, we're all going to die, there's going to be atomic bombs around everywhere, and band of bombers, they said, and it was a sort of hopeless situation. And I sometimes said, there's got to be a God. But I didn't know, he got that many different religions around the world, I didn't know they were. I said, is he worth $2 bob? He must know what you're thinking. And I just prayed, I said, God, reveal yourself, I don't know who you are. And then strange enough, the next few weeks and months, I've got all these Christians who've been cut across my paths. I used to love having debates and say, oh, what makes your religion any better? And then the fellow said, well, you don't argue, just come along. And so Paul Ann was the person who encouraged me to go to a church. And I happened to be the Baptist at Brighton. And I went along there, and I was invited into Christian families, and they gave me meals, and I said, well, something different about all this. A real deep concern and care. And I started saying there's something in this. And then this girl was just talking to me one night. She's actually from MBI. Lorraine Hughes was her name. And she just talked to me, and I sort of lose cannon a little bit. And in those days, I had supplementary exams. You had a second chance of getting an exam. And then she got on and said, well, I said, I'm a bit concerned about the exam. And she, it's one you pray about. I said, oh, I wouldn't do that. I don't ask anybody if I ever can't pay them back. And she just said to me, she said to me, look, God's given you a life, you know, and if you put your trust and faith in what Christ has done, you'll turn into eternal life. And I suddenly realised the odds were against me. Mathematical odds were way against me. I couldn't pay back God. And just a little thing like that, I become a Christian, you know, thanks to her.
Okay, so you've become a Christian. There's sort of, you're working on mathematical odds. Now that takes you a little bit deeper now into the probability that there is a God, the probability that, well, actually, didn't you prove God guilty?
Yeah, I did. Hope it doesn't hold against me, but well, I as I've involved in mathematics and things like that, I quickly discovered that there are constants in the universe, like c, the speed of light. It's a maximum. And I suddenly realised that's symbolical of Christ. And then I realised that the G comes next. They call it big G, and that's the gravitational force that holds the whole universe together. And I said, my goodness, that's symbolic of God. And then I come across H, and it's Planck's constant, and that's the thing they use for the innerness of electrons, like E equals HF, the frequency give out light, electrons drop. And I suddenly realised it's more as God leaving his fingerprints behind on his creation, and the way he holds the whole universe together. And I found that absolutely amazing. I guess that convicted me that And I convicted God and says, well, he's left his fingerprints behind and he's created the whole universe and he holds it together. And from all these constants, if you intermingle them, you can find other things like C squared on G, the universe's proportions. You get C cubed on G, which is the universal mass increase. The minds they've just discovered recently, the universe is increasing at an increasing rate.
So what did you find out that God was guilty of or wanting?
Well, I found out with the evidence, like a person leaving their fingerprints behind a crime, he clearly left his fingerprints behind, that these constants which hold the whole universe together, that he's into all this, because the coincidentalness of those is just way beyond odds it could even work out.
Well, we'll come back to the betting regime in a moment. You're watching Support Life and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Support Life, and I'm Gavin Baulch, and my guest is Kevin Sayers, an ex-electrical and power technician. Kevin, we're sort of getting onto some big subjects here. We're talking about maxims, and you actually have proven Hawkins a little bit wrong. Okay, tell me about that moment.
Yeah, well, when I discovered these units, you put certain units over the other one, they come out a constants or they come out maximums, as I mentioned, like C to the fifth on G is the maximum power you can get from a point source. And anyway, so I quickly realised, people don't seem to realise what temperature is. But he mentioned when the universe, he believed, started, it was down a little dot. Everything was in a little dot. It was infinite temperature, infinite density. Well, the density is C to the cube on G, and yet he reckons that you get a maximum density, and also temperature. If you understand what temperature is just the atoms vibrating at a velocity. Now, if people recognise the speed of light as the maximum, well, obviously you can't have atoms vibrating faster than the speed of light. So, because people don't understand these concepts, and when you put these units together, it gives you new tools to work out what is going on. And the only real tool they've got is they recognise the speed of light is a maximum. And when you discover all these other maximums, you can actually work out lots of other things. Like 40 odd years ago, I worked out the universe was increasing at an increasing rate, and that its mass was increasing. And some top scientists recognise this and actually observing it occurring now. So I think these are very powerful tools, and they're very analogous to the periodical tables, where you can work out characteristics of elements you haven't even discovered, whereas here you've got new tools to work out what shapes the universe and why certain things occur. And I believe, to myself, I proved myself right. And so I just think, because they didn't lack those tools, they make certain statements that are not always true. Okay,
so he might need to watch this program.
Yeah, hopefully he does.
All right. Okay, now let's come back to another kind of maximum moment when you met and saw your granddaughter for the first time with the red hair, reminded you of your mum. You weren't sure about all your feelings to your mum, but you were thankful for something. Why? What did you want to thank her for?
Well, it really, becoming a Christian, I get almost emotional out of it, because I realise a lot of people just abort their children. And I think my mother, in her strength, maybe she couldn't look after me. And I know I get a bit emotional about this. And she didn't abort me. I know years ago they had simple abortions where they self-abort themselves, just got a needle and things like this, knitting needles. And she didn't abort me. And I thank her for that alone, because she's given me a self where I can witness. I witness to myself where God, Christ works through me. And if I was aborted, no doubt, I know the Bible talks about young children die, they go to heaven. But the thing is, they've missed out. I've been a witness, doing things for God, doing things for Christ, and helping society to come to the Lord. And I just thank you for that. I really do.
Well, that's terrific. And how did you view the struggles that your dad went through and some of the pain it caused you?
Well, there was a lot of pain. I wasn't a Christian, and I was very factual I felt there was no... I know my mother deep down loved me, and I didn't have much respect for her until later life. And I was managed to help her and all those type of things. But I really had a fallout with my parents. As I said, left home when I was about 17 or 18, and really that didn't help me much because I wasn't a Christian and things like that. I went off the skids quite a bit. And not till I become a Christian, and I had a bit of empathy because I realised war has a lot of turmoil and things. So in my own heart, I've forgiven my dad for what has occurred, and I realised my mum, she stuck together as a family. In those days, women got bashed around a bit, they stayed with the families. And I know today's, there's a lot of safety valves where they can opt out of this, and I could see how she really tried to get the family together. So I do have a love for her as well, which has kind of come because I've become a Christian.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so looking back, which we've been doing, what would you say to a young person who might be in difficult circumstances, a teenager or in an orphanage or whatever it is? What words would you encourage them with?
Yeah, I know lots of people not from a Christian background, whatever degree it could be, and I was reading a verse in the Bible, and I said, it's rather profound. It said, only a fool has said in his heart, there's no God. And I said, I've read that many times. I said, what does that really mean? And it's only dawned on me. In your heart, you say there's no God. If you happen to be in a discussion with people, and you might mention something, what you did regularly, went to church, something, what, you're a Christian? What, you're mad, you're stupid. Other people sit on the fence and say nothing. That person's got more hope because God likes a fighter. He likes someone to question things. He loves it. He wants to communicate and reach people. And I was the same way. I used to, anybody discuss religion, I was there tearing them apart because this Paul Am, he challenged me to it. He probably, I no doubt he prayed me, he presented me with a lovely Bible and become a Christian. And that's what it's all about. If you're sitting on the fence, you've got no hope. But God loves you to have a fight. He doesn't mind you debating. Quite often I tear God apart in my mind and say, when you go for work, they talk about certain evaluations, they talk about skills, knowledge, attitude. You knock all these things up about God, he comes up gold every time, and he doesn't mind being challenged. And beautiful.
Well, I think that's a good point to finish on. The challenge before us is life is precious. Appreciate the life that you have, and thank you for taking us into this infinite universe of ours. You've been watching Support Life, and that's all for our program today. Join us again next week. Goodbye.